never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today is another fantastic day, and we often talk about transformations. And some transformations are a bit more subtle and they can take a long time, and others are more immediate. In this case of my guest today, Joseph Kajy, he is a chameleon, so to speak. If you look at from what it is, or maybe an octopus, going from complete one end of the spectrum, 47 felonies, that's not bad, to now living a life with a second-figure income. Now, that's not bad either. So this guy doesn't do things by halves. I've already get it. And I want to know, how the hell do you turn your life around like that? And what are the lessons that he has learned the hard way? And guys, if after this interview you still think that you're the only one going through shit out there and that there is no hope and that there's no help, well, then I can't help you anymore. Because here are two numbnuts like me and like him who have turned their life around. Come on, guys. Let's take our life into our own hands, take action. But let's listen how Joseph got about it. Joseph, welcome to my show.
Stephen, man, it's such a pleasure to be here. I love your energy. You got me so excited already. Just to be that example too, I mean, how many times have we told ourselves, oh, I get it, you could do it, but I'm different. And the lies that we'll tell ourselves why we can't do what other people are doing.
Exactly.
It's crazy, brother. It's crazy. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited to have a conversation with you, brother. You said I'm a comedian. I got you to laugh right away. That's awesome.
I think the reality is you say it. We are so self-absorbed and live in our own little painful hell when we are in the midst of addiction. But we don't start off like that. We start off little children and playing and things like that. Well, for some of us, the childhood was not so great. How was your childhood?
My childhood had good and bad in it. To be honest with you, I come from a family who grew up in the Middle East. My dad owned his own business. He was working all the time and my mom was at home taking care of the family. From the outside, you would think I would not be somebody who would fall into addiction. Our family's close knit, no real alcoholics. Maybe they're unqualified, but no real things that happened because of alcohol and drugs. And then here's Joseph, out comes me on April 11, 1991. So in my childhood, I would say it was fairly okay. Now I say that, and then I'm going to follow that up with, I was molested when I was 6 years old. And I still thought, it was just something that happened to me. I never dealt with it. I never understood it. And then I moved from Detroit, Michigan, which is the north side of the United States, to the bottom side to the south of the United States. Very different culture, very different people. And I was still trying to figure out who Joseph was. And what I started to do was I started to let the world tell me who I was. And I became so many different versions of myself. And that's just where I got lost. So my family was supportive, but, emotionally and going through stuff, not talking about things, my childhood wasn't terrible. I'm grateful for everything that's happened. My childhood has given me the life that I have today. But from the outside, you would have looked at Joseph's life when he was younger. If you look at pictures and the videos that my parents took of me, you'd be like, oh, that's a good family there. But inside, there was a lot going on in Joseph's life, man.
Isn't it? And that's sort of the classic scenario. Not everyone has to go through myriads of real obvious assaults and insults and trauma. Trauma is quite unique, and trauma is something that comes on top of our genes. And it's quite interesting. So here we've got Joseph, who actually doesn't seem to have a strong family history of addiction, where obviously not too much trauma, at least as far as your brain tells you today, has occurred. So what happened with the first time when you had alcohol? Or did you go straight for another poison?
No, alcohol was the first thing. So I started drinking alcohol at the age of 13.
Why? What did it give you?
what alcohol gave me is it relieved me from the bondage of myself. You know, all the fears that I had, all the worries that I had in my life of trying to fit in. You know, I was always afraid of being me. Like I always laughed. Like I could never go to a party and dance unless I had alcohol because I was always afraid of dancing. But alcohol gave me permission to be somebody else. You know, being at a party, being somewhere, it gave me permission to not be me because I really wasn't okay with me. And that's what alcohol first did for me. When I first had my first drink and I got that buzz, I said, oh, this feeling right here, this is what I'm chasing. This is the feeling I'm going to chase. Exactly. And I did. I chased it for a long time until alcohol wasn't enough. And I was introduced to opiates at the age of 15. And opiates did the same thing for me that alcohol did. And opiates also, what it did for me, like I said, it was the feeling. You know, I always say drugs and alcohol were not the problem. I was the problem. That was just a solution to my problem.
Exactly.
And the opiates relieved me from the bondage of me. When I was scared, when I was afraid, when I was in an uncomfortable situation, I felt like I couldn't cope with it with regular life without drugs or alcohol. And then eventually, whether I was happy, I heard somebody say the other day, what's a trigger? I was like, man, waking up is a trigger. You know, I got high when I was happy. I got high when I was sad. I got high when I was good, you know, and that's what I started to chase. And then it was a never ending road. You know, it never stops. You know, it was continuous wake up. How do I get money? And how do I find drugs?
See, there you are. Well, what you're describing is the classic dopamine rush that you get. This powerful wave that comes over you. I'm like you. I remember that first bus, and it was a most beautiful release of tension in me. And it came much later in my life. It was first year university, 18, 19, something like that. And it was so remarkable and so beautiful. Oh, God.
Can I add something to what you're talking about right now?
Should.
That feeling that we get from drinking and using, there's no greater feeling than when actually you're helping somebody else and you're serving other people. Because I'm hearing you talk about that great feeling you had and the great feeling I had from the buzz that alcohol and drugs gave us. Yeah. But there is no drug in this world that has ever given me than when I'm sitting in front of another alcoholic or even somebody maybe not dealing with drugs and alcohol, just dealing with a problem in their life. And I'm able to give value to them. Brother, man, there's no drug out there. There's no alcohol out there. I don't care how much percentage alcohol in there. That's going to make you feel better than that.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Let me come back, though, to the way you grew up. Because you were growing up. Well, did you always grow up in the United States, or was part of your upbringing in the Middle East?
No, all of that. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, so I was second generation.
Okay, cool. Were there still the same strong beliefs in your parents? Did your parents ever use alcohol, or was alcohol taboo?
They only used alcohol, like, you know, when they went to family gatherings and maybe there was a glass of wine. Sure. But I mean, there was not even alcohol really in our house. You know, if it was there, it was like in a room that, like, when real big parties happen, they would pull it out and pour a couple of drinks.
Right. Gotcha. So I dare to say that even in such families, there is addiction. There are addictive genes present. They just manifest themselves in a different way. How was the relationship of your parents with regards to work? Now, it's a bit hard to say with work because I'm a bloody workaholic. I throw myself in there because I love it, but I also can escape my reality. Any kind of other problems, I work. Okay. So, and that's I mean, a very classic Middle Eastern go-getter kind of thing. I mean, your dad probably defined himself with work. But what about relationships to food? What about gambling? What about dare I say sex? What about those kind of other behaviors that are equally as addictive? Shopping, I mean, in the United States.
That's right.
Anything like that in your family?
Well, so what you were just talking about was there any addictions in my family? Now, I think everybody what an addiction is something that you're almost chasing. I call it an idol. You know, I call it you're using something that God created you. He gave it to you as a gift, and now you have abused it. And so the reality, like even for my father, his work was an addiction. Because the truth is my dad worked all the time, and in his way, it was the way he was providing for our family. He found his identity in that. My dad till this day does not need to work. He could retire and be fine. But we go to a vacation with my kids and my family, and my dad's not there because he says, I have to work. That's an addiction. It's taken power over his life. So I've today, after reflecting and understanding people and how they deal with their emotions, that was one. Now, so that was my father's issue. My father, and I call it an issue, but it was his addiction. It was what I know now to be what I saw as somebody who I'm all in. 1 hour of work is not enough, but 1,000 hours of work is too much.
Ooh, very nicely said. Very nicely said. And that is absolutely, yeah. No, that explains that. Oh, it's hard. Oh, it's so hard because on the one hand, we call it an addiction, and probably rightly so. I'm a workaholic, yet I have got exactly the same arguments on the tip of my tongue as your dad.
Well, I mean, we could talk about. I'm open to the conversation.
No. It's just I'm getting a little bit angry with myself because you're holding this beautiful mirror in front of my face, and I actually helped you hold that mirror, and I think,
well, you know what's funny is I still do that too now. Like don't think because I'm talking about my dad who became a workaholic. I actually have a mentor in my life who said, Joseph, you're in fight or flight mode all the time. Do you know how to just be? And I'm like, well, I'm a doer. I'm a doer. That's what I do. I'm a doer. I got to do. And he said, I caution you to just be, be in your thoughts, meditate. Like it's hard for me to sit still. It's amazing. I'm still that way. I'm high energy. I'm constantly moving. Self-reflection is huge because what I started to realize is I start to find my identity in my accomplishments because it makes me feel better. And it could be a good thing. It's okay to want to accomplish, but I'm starting to learn that, man, am I just trying to accomplish because I'm trying to feel better? And you know what that starts to do? I start to do things for my wife to accomplish. And now I want to get her approval that I'm doing the right thing. And I don't get it. And guess what that resolves to? It's a never ending cycle.
Excellent. Oh, I hate you. Absolutely hate you because
I'm talking to myself too.
Oh man, we two have got exactly the same experiences in our lives, and it will never go away. We will always have these core beliefs. We will always work on these things, but we both have appreciated that this is a privilege to actually work on ourselves and to take action, to change and to transform. Man,
we're aware of them.
Well, exactly. How beautiful is that? Yeah. So there you were, essentially a good kid, getting into alcohol, then finding opiates. Interesting. I mean, they are not easily available or not as easily available over here. How did you get into the opiates? Was it just a mate who?
No, there was an epic pandemic in like where we're at in Florida in the South.
Right. Okay.
There's
was it still Oxycontin? Was it still Oxycontin?
That's right. They were giving them away like candy. I mean, it was so easy to get them that like there was a big scandal. They ran a huge operation where doctors were arrested. They were opening up. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, you could go to, like, if you look at it in the ghetto, in the hood, there's a shopping center that had an open spot, and all of a sudden there'd just be a sign out front. Pain medication, and you would walk in and there's a doctor in there that asked you to circle. It was insane how easy it was. No MRIs. So it was very easy to get. It was an opioid pandemic. So getting them was actually very easy. It was almost like you had no problem to get them. And I did.
And for the listeners who don't know about that, 80% of the OxyContin scourge was really in Florida, in the Panhandle down there. So that became really the focus, the center of oxycodone, as it was. And when I say oxycodone, that's a real generic name of the drug. OxyContin was the trademark under which it was sold through much of the world. Nowadays, things have been changing a lot. So, I mean, from 2013, 2014 onwards, we had China flooding fentanyl and fentanyl analogs into the market, which is much easier to smuggle. It's far more potent and now kills far, far, far more people. How long were you in the opioid world?
So I started opiates as soon as I turned 15, and then all the way till I turned 26. Till right now I've been a little over 5 years sober. So when I turned 26, even in prison, I mean, in prisons, it's not like you can't get drugs in prison. So it wasn't until I turned 26 years old that I stopped using opiates or anything of that nature. But opiates were my drug of choice, and I used them actively for 15 years.
And if you think about it, I mean, you don't get. There's some advantages for opiates. Did you snort them, or did you inhale? Did you inject? What was your choice?
I'm still afraid of needles, which is why I don't have any tattoos. So that's what I did. I snorted them.
Yeah. Okay. And again, it is so understandable, because there was still this need in you, the pain in you, however difficult to understand. I think anyone who has not admitted to being an addict, anyone who has actually not explored that side of himself, will not understand the power that a drug or alcohol or a certain behavior can give you. The release of tension, the release of pressure, the release of pain. It becomes at the same level as breathing, having water, having food, getting rid of that pain.
And it's how we cope. It's how we cope. What's crazy about what you just said was very well. We look at drugs and alcohol because it's known, it's drugs and alcohol. We can't compare drugs and alcohol to sex. We can't compare drugs and alcohol to buying things to look good. We can't compare drugs and alcohol to work, because those are good things. Drugs and alcohol are bad. Now, as an addict, I just went to drugs and alcohol to solve my problems. But I would almost ask somebody who questioned that, like, oh, I don't understand it. Well, is there something in your life today that if I were to take away from you, you wouldn't know how to survive? If I were to take away your work, maybe if I were to take away your pornography, maybe if I were to take away your accomplishing, what are things? I think we all sometimes tend to not reflect, which thankfully I was an addict. I have to reflect, or else I believe I'll lose myself and I'll go back into my addiction. But what are you chasing? What are people nowadays are still chasing something, but it's not drugs and alcohol though. That's okay.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And it is so important to realize that there are good reasons why we want to escape our reality. Shit happens, and that is normal. In our lives, things will go wrong. Chance of depression in your lifetime, 1 in 3, 1 in 4. 1 in 3 women in the United States have been raped or sexually abused. 1 in 7 men. If you look at anxiety disorder, I mean, anxiety is so bad that it really impairs your quality of life. It's 1 in 5 young women here in New Zealand and overseas in the Western world. So if you look at it, there's so much pain out there, and you don't have to be blown up or be the recipient of major trauma or witness major trauma that your best mate dies in front of you in an IED explosion. That's trauma, of course, too. But trauma comes in all shapes and sorts, and it often comes in layers. So it can be smaller things that layer up on top of each other, but you then end up in this lost world where actually you are just silently suffering. And then if some behavior comes in, could be bulimia or anorexia. Anorexia a bit difficult. Bulimia, for example, that when you talk to people who have got an eating disorder, the tension release they experience when they have vomited everything up, that is very similar to that dopamine rush that an addict gets, an alcoholic gets. So here you go. There are many, many different ways how we try to escape our reality or mitigate or change the way we suffer. So it is so important what you're describing, because actually, whilst you're describing your response to opiates, that applies to so many people out there.
Yes.
And so I love it that you talk about the cross addiction that is out there. Did you experience that when you actually came off the opiates? What do you want to go to with something else?
Yeah. Well, you know, what's crazy is you got to remember, I turned 26 and now you remove the drugs from Joseph. So now I just have me. So now I'm like, oh man, how do I cope with my feelings and how do I cope with my anxiety? So I started to, and it's funny because like now I chase things just like I chase drugs. I chase helping guys in recovery like I chase drugs. I chase going to the gym and exercising like I chase drugs. And this is what I tell people in the programs. You know, when I wanted drugs, if my drug dealer didn't answer the phone, I didn't go back to bed. I did everything I could to find it. So now that's a gift. That to me, my willingness and my intensity and my work ethic to go find drugs and actually have to steal from somebody. I mean, if I told you the stories of how I would have to get money to do it, it was very manipulative and planned and orchestrated. That's a gift. As crazy as it sounds, I was just not using my gift in the proper places. I wasn't using the gift like God wanted me to use it. So today, if I can use that same gift to help people, or same gift in my healthy lifestyle, or same gift in my business, or same gift as my being a father, I chase, like I said, being a father. Oh man, am I spending time? I'm home. Turn my phone off. It's the focus of wanting to accomplish what's in front of me, you know, and that's the only thing I ever did was in front of me was just drugs. So yes, I still do it today. I mean, if I don't go to the gym for 2-3 days, I'm feeling like, oh no, you know, there's something going on and I'm chasing that, you know, but what I'm talking about I'm looking for healthy habits. You know, what are some healthy habits that I have in my life, my spiritual life, me being a husband, me being a father, you know, these are the things that you can say I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to playing with my 2 daughters and running around with them. You know, I'm addicted to taking my wife out to dinner. I'm addicted to trying to eat healthy and exercise. I'm addicted to getting closer to my higher power. I'm addicted to working with guys in recovery. So to answer your question, yes, there's things I am still today addicted to.
Oh, nicely turned around. Nicely. I absolutely identify myself with every single word you're saying. Having said that, there's also a negative aspect of that addiction. We have already touched upon the workaholic. I still am a workaholic. And that's good. I mean, it makes me very successful in what I do, but it's I'm still escaping. But I love to, and well, food. For me, there is still a whack-a-mole. Whilst I'm absolutely describing myself in the same positive terms as you, the reality is there is still an emotional overeating. There is still ways that my body says, "Oh, this would be so much better for you if you just do X." Which I'm maybe not so proud of. What do you do in such moments? How do you deal with that inner Schweinehund, as I'm calling him, this little bastard, the little voice that tries to convince you, one is okay, and whatever that one is. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I love that you said that, because it's funny. I'm actually dealing with that now. Like I'm realizing, okay, I'm doing all this stuff and you were talking about there's a negative to it. Well, I just found out for me that the reason I keep doing it is because I am trying to just keep doing to prove to myself and to distract myself. It's a distraction from Joseph. So the way I deal with it today is I have people in my life today that know me really well.
Right.
I have people in my life that do know me. Now, when I start to get, and when I'm in those moments, I'm getting irritable. I'm getting discontent. I'm getting frustrated a little bit more. Now, I always say, man, Alcoholics Anonymous is a program that I'm part of. This isn't to promote them, but they ruined me when it comes to this, because it's almost like I'm forced to do it now. I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am again. You know, I'm always looking in the mirror. Here I go again. And the truth is, I don't think that'll ever stop. It'll just show up in different areas of my life because I'm a human and I'm not perfect. And I'm always going to have areas of my life I'm going to grow. So as soon as I start to reflect on myself, and it's funny, like I will get like I get defensive with my wife. And it's something that I get so frustrated why I get defensive. And then I realize why I got defensive. So I fix it and I'm better for like 4 months. And then boom, all of a sudden, here I go again. You know, my prayer every day is, God, relieve me of the bondage of self. You know, so the way I deal with it, number one, is the program has given me tools.
Yeah.
If I'm angry, if I'm frustrated, number one, I always turn my thoughts to somebody else. Because when I start getting frustrated that things aren't going my way, it's probably because I'm stuck in myself, which means, have I done anything for other people? And I honestly don't like that feeling of the irritable, the discontent.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I want to stay there because I'm very hard-headed. But eventually, because my outside world starts to notice it, my wife notices it, you know, my guys in recovery notice it, and they're like, "Hey man, you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm not." Okay, time to do the work. Okay, I'll get up on my high horse and I'll do the work. You know, so it's a never ending thing.
Sure.
But I have to deal with it. I have to.
Okay, so I play devil's advocate now because I'm like you. I always think when I get angry or when I get urges of I need a cheesecake kind of a thing, then I first ask myself, okay, have you looked after yourself? So the hungry, angry, lonely, tired. What were the triggers? What is the message that my body wants to send me? And I'll accept that. So that's my nowadays my first question. But as it so happens, there are still a lot of assholes around you. And God, I mean, the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, I have been blessed to meet many assholes. So much incompetence around me that completely then affects the way I have to deal with the consequences of such behaviors, where I have lost my cool quite a few times now. And it's not a nice kind of feeling. But I mean, how do you deal with the fact that there are assholes out there? You say dig deep and look at yourself, how you contributed. But what do you do with the assholes?
So I can't change assholes. I can only change how I react to them. And if I don't want, now, number one, I also look at assholes as what are they going through? You know, why are they treating me this way? Maybe they're going through something. I try to deal with empathy. And the other thing I don't want to do is I don't ever want to give any human being power over how I feel and ruining my day. Because if I allow you, this is how I look at negativity. And when you say assholes, I think of somebody who brings some negativity into my life because of their pessimism. They're different. You got to remember, I'm running a business. So I got employees, I got customers. It happens all the time, not just every day. It happens all the time. But one thing I understand is if they have a negative seed they're trying to plant, I don't want to be a fruit of that negative seed. I'm going to kill it right then and there. So if you're going to bring your negativity around me or you're frustrated, you're going to treat me differently, I'm going to kill that right there and I'm not going to let it affect me. Because most of the time, if I get frustrated at somebody because of the way they are doing something, it goes right back to selfishness, self-centeredness. I'm the guy who wants to run the show. And if you just do the things that I want you to do exactly the way I want them to, things will just be a little bit better. But guess what I'm doing now? I'm focusing on things I cannot control. The only thing Joseph can control is me and how I react to that person. So if somebody, I mean, I've had people hang up on me. I've had people curse at me. I've had people not pay me for a job that I really did, but they were just trying to find ways to get over on it. And my pause is just, okay, this is what happened. It didn't happen to me. It just happened. And I could sit here, cry about it, be angry about it. And guess where that anger is going to do? That anger is going to cover my heart. And when you're angry, you can't give love. And when I'm angry, guess where I'm also taking that anger? I'm taking that anger around my influence, around the people around me. So I've now taken that anger and I take it home to my wife. I take it to my kids. I take it to my employees. I take it to the girl at the grocery store who didn't bag up my stuff properly. So now I'm really just planting more seeds of anger. So instead, I really just stop and realize, you know what? It is what it is. It happened and that's it. I'm done. I'm moving on. That person has to deal with what they're going through. You know, I always say that if somebody is being an asshole to you, man, they must be going through something in their life that they have to bring some negativity to you.
How
What
do
are
you
they
then?
going through?
So I love that. I love that you distinguish a person's actions from, let's say, a system failure. Let's talk about system failures within in your company. So there's something that has direct influence on you, and you feel powerless, and you're frustrated about a system that is incredibly difficult to change. How do you deal with that? Same faults?
Yeah. I mean, number one, I always look at what could have I done differently? You know,
Mhm.
is there something I could have done to avoid this situation?
Yeah.
And sometimes if I don't have the answer, I need to reach out to somebody who maybe can give me another perspective. Hey man, is there something I could have done differently here? So maybe next time if I deal with the situation, I don't get that same reaction and I'm not in the same place.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is something I can do differently. And then I'm glad that it happened. You know, an example is I had a customer who literally did not pay me because of a million reason excuses of why they didn't want to make the payment.
Mhm.
But I didn't have anything in my contract to protect me.
Oh.
And when I reached out to somebody, they said, hey, you should probably add this in your contract to protect you. And then this is what you can do if it happens again. So
Nice.
now the good thing is I took something negative and I was like, okay, it cost me $1,500 US to learn that. And I can sit here and still be angry, or I can say, hey, life lesson learned. Let's keep moving on. So it goes back to if I can't change anything, and what can I do differently? It's just that reflection.
Yeah. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And that is most of the time I'm able to do that. There are just times when there is a pity party going on.
I'm the same way. It doesn't happen right away. Don't let me lie to you. You know, sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 24 hours, sometimes it's a week, you know. I hope it's quicker than normal.
Good. I was about to say that it is absolutely normal that you have got waves of emotions washing over you. And sometimes it isn't a wave, it's a freaking tsunami and a lake. And right. it takes a while to drain away afterwards. Mm-hmm. But I guess the positive thing of all that is these emotions are normal as well. This is normal that we experience these feelings, these emotions. And in the past, we would have run a mile and would have tried to numb them immediately with alcohol or drugs, etc. Nowadays, we have learned to accept those emotions for what they are, a part of life. And we try to constantly figure out new ways, more productive ways, how to deal with these neurochemical waves that are washing over us. I think that is, for that, I'm internally for all eternity grateful that I nowadays get to make those choices, that I know that by living intentionally and by focusing on the here and now, I have already so much power. And with that, I constantly move away from the victim mentality towards the at least survivor, if not thriver mentality over there. And that is where I love to be. That's the post-traumatic growth that I adore, that I live for. Yes, of course, the pendulum swings back from now and then towards the pity party. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a choice. You decide how fast you drive. The tacho, you decide where you put it with your gas. It's the same in recovery. You choose. You either work on your recovery or you work on your relapse. So there's only two things. Man. So what do you do? Sorry, no, ladies first. What? Ladies first.
I got you. Much respect. I was just thinking about what you just said about the victim or I call it the victim or the victor mentality. Like it's already happened to you. You can't change it. So we can either cry about it and let it affect us in other areas of our life, or just face it. You know, we're already in pain. Whatever happened, whatever you lost, whatever it is, you're already there. It's happened. If you can't change it, now let's do something with that.
Exactly.
And sorry, the lady had to say that. I had to interrupt you just to get that out.
That's absolutely fine. And it is important that we figure that out for ourselves. We all have got choices to make, and that is a beautiful gift that we need to accept. Things don't just happen. you play a role and you take action. And that action is, I mean, you guys doing it right now. You're listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube video because you think, yeah, something is not right in my life, and you're willing to make a change. And that is so bloody important. The past does not equal the future. We can change. But in order to do so, you can't just go once to a gym, lift 2 weights, and then say, great, I'm now healthy forever. No, it doesn't work like that. Healing comes in layers, just as much as trauma comes in layers. So therefore, and you need to practice your healing. The first time you go into the gym, you can't even lift a bar, leave alone any weights on it. And then 3 months later, you're throwing those weights around as if they're bloody feathers. And that is the reality. You've practiced that. How would your life be if we actually started to practice living intentionally and practice those things that turn your life around? But that is where Joseph and me have got a huge advantage, maybe, compared to you, because we have found ourselves so much in pain that we actually accepted that alone we are powerless, and that alone we can't figure it out, and we trusted ourselves over to a higher power. And if that sounds corny to you, we assembled a power team of people who were far more intelligent than we were, at least emotionally, or maybe also physically, and we tried to learn from them. And that is something that is happening when it comes to recovery in a 12-step program. There are many other programs out there, like you, Joseph. I went through a 12-step approach, and that's why I called my book this book My Steps to Sobriety. And it is exactly, I'm demystifying the 12 steps towards how you would approach a failing business. If your mate is in a problem and we both are in the same business, then you would take logical steps. And how were you introduced to the 12 steps? Was that something that you were forced into when you went into sort of court-mandated rehab? Or was there I assume there was such a thing like that in prison?
Yeah, so it wasn't actually in prison. One of the times in prison and here, there's not a lot of rehabilitation. It's actually part of my mission right now. I'm actually going back into the prisons to work with some of these guys and just talk about this stuff, and give them an example. But, I wasn't introduced into prison. There was a time as I was on my crime spree that I was facing some charges, and a lawyer had advised, listen, we have 2 options. Go to rehab. And if you go to rehab, it's going to look a lot better that you're actually trying to do something with your life than just turning yourself in. So go to rehab and then turn yourself in. And in rehab, I was introduced to the program of AA, the 12-step program. And, when I first was in rehab, I was just like, okay, I'm doing this because I'm trying to get out of jail. But it was close to, I stayed there for 30 days. And it was the last week that I just remember watching some of these guys that were there for like 6 months, and they just looked different. They looked like they were really happy. Like it blew my mind how they were just having a ball and goofing off and hugging each other, high-fiving, and they just seemed like they didn't carry this weight around that I did. Because I was still carrying a weight, and I felt it. And when I looked at them, I was like, man, you guys don't look like you have this weight anymore. And guys that started getting close to me like the last week, and I feel like I opened up a little bit more, and I started to learn a little bit about what this program was. And then my lawyer advised me to go to a halfway house after I got out of rehab, because they said I didn't have to turn myself in. And in the halfway house, I started to say, let me work these steps that they talk about, because if this is what it's going to take to get that light, and get this weight removed, I want it. But at that time, I wasn't willing to be 100% open and honest with another individual, because I couldn't even be honest with myself.
Exactly.
So that's where I was introduced to it. I ended up relapsing because, again, I would even have a sponsor, and I laughed. We would write down like our amends and all the things we did. And I would just like make up stuff to make it look like I was really doing it, because I didn't want to put my real stuff. That's how insane my mind was. But when I was released from prison this time, I reached out to one of the guys that was in that halfway house with me. And I thought for sure, this guy is not going to make it. He's angry right now. He's going to leave this house. But 4 years later, when I got out of prison, I find him on Facebook and he's like talking about recovery. And I'm like, this guy stayed sober. And something told me to shoot him a message and just say, hello, how are you, man? How's things going? And right away, he just called me and said, hey, where are you? Are you sober? I said, well, I actually just got out of prison. I'm sober right now, but I don't really know if I'm going to stay. Like I'm really scared. And I was so afraid. And I didn't even know if I could do it. And I'll just never forget. He said, well, you're right. You can't, but we can. He said, I'm going to pick you up. Let's go to a meeting. And that's when I started to just get around the guys and get close to my higher power. Because you're right. I can't stay sober. I can't do nothing, but we can. We 100% can.
And that is the important bit, isn't it? But you can't see it. You can't see it in a moment when you're in pain. You can't see it when you have done things that put the shame and the guilt on you. And we are masters in doing that. And often enough, I mean, I'm still not sure if it was my depression or if it was the shame and guilt due to the behaviors when I was hiding my alcohol and maybe the way that I behaved to others that which drove me. But I was convinced that there is no way that anyone could possibly forgive me. That was probably I didn't deserve happiness. There were a lot of lies that addiction told me. And depression told me. And it's very, very hard because you believe those lies. And they seem to be irrefutable. And nowadays I so know that this is all bullshit. So if any one of you thinks out there, well, these two have got it sorted. Sure, they could, but me, never, ever. Well, sorry, guys. No, that's not true. I think everyone has got choices that they can make. You either work on your recovery or you work on your relapse. That's what it comes down to. But in order to work on your recovery, you need to accept that alone you can't do it. So you need a mentor to start off with. You need a system that you can subscribe to. Now, it's really, really important to realize that there are many, many rehabs out there. Some of them are a little better than slave camps. So some people who try to help you, you might not gel with. Some systems might sound absolutely crazy to you and they don't gel with. Or more likely, you're not yet ready to actually listen to whatever the system is. The system can be 100%. It could be the best thing ever invented. If you don't want it, if your belief is still so hooked on the denial, there's nothing wrong with me. No. Look at him over there. He is an alcoholic. Look at him. He drinks. I just drink socially. Yeah, just the sheer fact that I drink socially in the morning to stop my jitters is a complete different thing. That kind of shit. Yeah. So you guys can do it, honestly, but there are many hurdles in your own head that need to be overcome first. And I think that's the big thing to realize.
Yeah, it's two things too. It's believing it's possible. Like, because I came in the rooms and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I know what I'm doing kind of isn't working, let me try something else. But when you look for reasons why something doesn't work, you're going to find a lot of reasons why it won't work. But if you believe like, hey, this is possible, then maybe the first group that you go to is not a great group, but you don't give up there because you know it's possible. Like, okay, this is not just the only thing. Exactly. But we feel like we need to understand everything before we step in, and I said this the other day. Do you know how when you turn your lights on, do you know every single way that light turns on? Or when you start your car, do you know how every piece works when you start your car? So when it comes to getting sober or even finding a higher power, because people struggle with the higher power, like you were saying, is we want to understand everything, but you don't understand the lights in the car. The reason why you don't care, because you want the light to turn on. You want the car to start. If you just want to live differently and have a new way of life, I promise, start looking for reasons why it's going to work, and you will find them. You'll find them in me. You'll find them in you. You'll find them in other people, you know?
In the business world, it's called analysis paralysis.
That's right.
So you're quite right. And sometimes you just have to do. And again, that comes to another point. I think that you probably subscribe to as much as I. 80% of success is just showing up and giving it a shot. You don't have to be perfect in something. On the contrary, the first time you try a new skill, let that be playing the guitar, let that be a business venture, or let that be sobriety. Guess what? You have no fucking clue what you're doing. And I think that's how you need to start off with, accepting that, and accepting that there are people out there who can teach you how to play the guitar, or who can teach you steps towards your own sobriety. And I think, looking at it from that angle, maybe you can become a little bit more willing and a bit more open to making a fool out of yourself, because that's what you do. I mean, it's just whenever you start something new, you won't be the best in it. There's no way. So therefore, how do you expect to be the perfect guy somehow and going into a new skill such as acknowledging your feelings, or such as taking responsible ownership, taking ownership of your actions? Oh boy, first time you do that, no, you don't know how to do it, and it hurts regardless what you do. But it is okay. It is okay, guys. You're learning a new feeling, a new skill of sorts, and life will change. Now imagine you do that every day, not big, huge things, but every day you make one decision that is actively working towards your recovery, or towards a better mental health, or to go away from any disease model towards you living a fuller life, a life that you actually think, yeah, this is cool. I enjoy that life. Make one step every day. That's all I'm asking you. Do 5 minutes every day, and in one particular respect. May that be a relationship. Could you imagine that your life will be a bit different if every day you spend now 5 intentional minutes with that significant other, with that person? Can you imagine that after a week, your relationship will be a bit different? How would that be after a month? After 3 months, if you every day put into something into the emotional bank account, and that is in this relationship, can you imagine how powerful that would be? I can. Now, maybe that was just 5 minutes. 5 minutes out of, I don't know how many minutes there are in a day. Imagine another 5 minutes. Maybe now you do something for yourself. How about maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes activity, 5 minutes of doing some sport. If you don't do sport, 5 minutes of doing something, some movement. Can you imagine your life changes? Man, I mean, there's so much that we can do. Joseph, you're a man who has transformed him. What are other habits out there that you have implemented? I do the 5-minute gardener, so to speak, 5 minutes where I make a point in doing something, at least 5 minutes, and it works so well for me. What about right now? What are cool habits that you are just implementing?
Yeah, for me, I want to make sure what I'm doing is I'm intentional with my living. It's so important to me that because what happens is when we start spending time in places that we don't want to be in, we start losing our energy. We start losing our belief in ourselves. We start losing our love in ourselves because we're just doing things and we're not actually intentionally making these decisions. And for me, it all starts with gratitude, man. Everything to me is about gratitude, because what happens is when you want to make a change, you all of a sudden start to look at our life in this 360 view, right? It's this big view of all these changes that I have to make. And I couldn't agree with you anymore. I've said this even when I'm coaching somebody. Tell me right now the first thing that comes to your mind in your life that you want to change. Go. And I need it in 5 seconds because the first thing they spit out of their mouth is the first thing they want to change. I said, I don't want you to focus on anything else. I know, but I didn't, no. Let's focus on one thing at a time, because what happens is when you focus on one area in your life that you need to change, and now we're intentionally focused on one area.
Yeah.
Now we can actually pause. Again, I'm a doer, not a beer. So I got to pause and say, okay, why do I want to change this? And what do I want it to look like?
Yeah.
You know, what do I want? Whether it's my marriage, my business, my finance, my health, my recovery, or let's use an example of recovery. I want to be involved in recovery more. Great. What can we do to do that? Now it's really just breaking down. And what's crazy is within a matter of days, and probably after that conversation you could have with yourself, like if you're listening to this right now, and I'm going to ask you the same question, pick one area in your life, get a pen and paper, write down what that area is. Now write down what you want it to be and start coming with ideas of what you could do to change it. What are some, and if you don't know ideas, Google's a great place to go to find out. YouTube is a great place to go to, or message me and ask me. I'll answer it. And once you start working towards that, now you feel like you're getting somewhere. And you didn't even make a change. You're just actually focused on the change. So that's one, what you said it very similar. I just wanted to add to that because it's such a great point. It's just pick one thing. Our life is a life. It's a new way of life. It's not a tomorrow thing where I have arrived. I'm not going to arrive until I die because I'm gone. So every day I'm still on this addiction of what area of my life do I need to change? You know, I'm constantly want to get better. So there's always areas of my life that I have to focus on that I know I'm failing at. I know I'm not doing well at. And the other thing I'd like to add to that is this is where people start to judge themselves a lot. You know, they start to look at, oh man, I really need to change in this area of my life. And they start to say, I wish I wasn't this way. And they get into this judgment of themselves, you know, like, oh man, I can't believe I've allowed my health and fitness to fall off. The self-pity and why you are where you are, if you can just use that as your motivation to move forward instead of cripple you, because we're either crippled by our fears or we allow them to move us. Like when I came into the programs or the rooms, I was so afraid of a relapse. I was so afraid of going back to prison. I was so afraid of getting high again that it drove me to do whatever I had to do. Like if you told me I had to walk down the street to get sober and walk 40 miles, I'm like, if that's what it takes. Like, I know I don't know how to do this, but like I was so afraid. So if you're looking at the area in your life that you need to change and you're judging yourself about it, I want to encourage you to say, hey, number one, thank you for looking at yourself and actually finding an area in your life you need to change, because everybody's got it. It's like going in high school and you got a zit on your face and you're like, oh no, I got to put cream. I got to pop it. I don't want nobody to see my zit. You know, it's going to be terrible. But you walk into high school and everybody's got zits. So we all have areas in our life we need to change. You're just actually focusing on it and doing something about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted to add to it, was just focus on one thing. And please don't judge yourself when you're looking at it, because I think that's why we don't self-reflect sometimes, is we don't want to look at ourselves because we start to feel guilty and, oh man, I can't believe I've been doing this. But hey, it's a good thing. You're looking at areas of ways you can get better. You're going to change your story. Your story doesn't end here.
You're writing a new chapter, essentially. You are just right now deciding, okay, fine. You have had the dark night of the soul. Okay, you have done the playing, all that. So you're now coming towards the third big chapter, the third arc in your story, and you're saying, okay, fuck that. So now we are turning the story around, and I take ownership. I take action. And that is what this is about. Recovery is about accepting where you are at and acknowledging the past, but no longer living in the past. Use it as the power to catapult you forward. All those things behind you, all those things that you have done, there's things that happened to you, they were building up the tension. So imagine you've got a bow in your hand and you've put your arrow on there and you're pulling the string back. Everything that has occurred to you is pulling. Everything is putting together. The tension is there. And for most of our life, you have just been poof, poof, poof. It went everywhere. How about you now focusing that energy onto something that you want? truly, truly want, and with that I don't mean materialistic, I mean actually focus on who you want to be when you grow up. And it doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70. How about you using that energy? Focus on, I want to be a great dad. Well, okay, use that energy now and figure out, okay, how can I be a great dad? Close your eyes and let this arrow fly. Because the moment you ask the right question, your brain will come up with the answers. If you ask, why me? Why me? Oh, yeah, it will tell you heaps of reasons. If you say, well, how can I be a cool dad? Guess what your brain does? It comes up with answers. And that is so cool. So I love it. Joseph, you're a man who is taking his life into his hands in a way that few other people do. We too are blessed because we've gone through so much shit. We've gone through so much trauma, and we now are kick-ass people. Maybe pathologically kick-ass. Maybe the pendulum swings the other way. I give you that.
We still got areas we're working on.
Oh, absolutely. But we are doing it, and guess what? Yeah, we both are sitting there smiling. We are not on drugs. We are not on anything. We are on life. Right. Okay. Yes. We are enjoying being here and actually listening to each other and accepting things and growing as we talk about it. And that's cool life. That's connection. That's the other thing. You can't do it alone, guys. You need to connect. You need to actually to open up to people. And if you've never done that, it's so difficult. But maybe the first thing you can do is, if you've never opened up, go to a GP, to your family physician. You know, you probably have problems in your health somewhere. And if you're like me, drank far too much or used opiates like Joseph, guess what? Your liver has probably had a kicking and your kidneys are probably not so great and other things. So maybe time to see your doctor and actually get a checkup and maybe just open up. Because if you don't know where to start, there's so many other people out there, and a family physician or a GP might actually be very knowledgeable. Many of us doctors have been in the same boat. Workaholic, alcoholic, etc. Yeah, I am. I'm an anesthetist, and I got my shit together. So I know a bit what's the lay of the land around me. So just ask, and you will be amazed about the support that is out there. You are not alone, and the past does not equal the future. So if you just accept these two things, then you can actually maybe open up a little bit and say, okay, the past does not equal the future. What can I do right now? And if people indeed, Joseph, if people absolutely gel with what you're doing and with the work that you're doing, how can they find you? Where can they find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm on all social media platforms. So you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok. Everything is Joseph Kajy. So Joseph, Kajy. And I always say this, if you're going to come find me, don't just follow me and like my stuff. I want you to connect with me. You know, my purpose of coming on here and sharing my story and sharing the things that I'm learning in my life is I want to make more connections. There's a lot of people out there, like you were just talking about, that they do want to change. And they've been telling themselves, I want to change. And they just don't know where to start. Well, I'm giving you permission to start in my DMs, in my messages. That's your permission. God has blessed me currently with my business to have the time to talk to you specifically. And people have done this. So I want to encourage you. I've had strangers reach out to me that I've never met before, that today they live in a different state. And I call them my brothers and sisters, because we are doing life together. Yeah. I'm sharing my things. You're sharing your things. So if that's what you want to start, and you've always been thinking after listening to this, that I do want to change. There is an area in my life, Joseph, I want to change. I don't know where to start. I'm not selling you anything. I'm giving this to you for free. Please message me, because you are so worth it. And I want to spend that time with you because it's in my heart. It's in my passion. It's my new addiction. So please take advantage of my addiction and let me help you. Let me give you a perspective. Let me join you with this way of life.
I love it. Take advantage of my addiction. I love that.
It's so true.
In that setting, isn't it? It's beautiful. I could
Yes,
not agree
yes.
more. And guys, you don't need to remember all that. Look down there into the description of the YouTube video and the podcast, because you've got all the links down there. So don't be shy. I mean, what have you got to lose? What could possibly go wrong by you taking that first step of action if you have never done it before? Stop the catastrophizing. Stop the, oh my God, if he just knew. Guess what? There's so many things I have done and Joseph have done. I mean, 47 felonies. Come on.
Who am I to judge?
Yeah, that's right.
I've heard it all.
Yeah, exactly. So no, come on, guys. There is, it's okay. Whatever the past was, it's now. You have got the choice to make the future different. And it starts right now. And it starts with every second that comes thereafter. So no, Joseph, a fantastic interview. You're a great man who is just so full of passion and so full of love of life. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you for holding the mirror. Thank you for holding the mirror in front of my face, because there are still so many things where I can improve. And this is an ongoing story. And I guess the day that I don't improve or that I don't learn something is a very sad day for me.
That's right.
So therefore, today is a very good day. It started with a fantastic interview, and now I go to work and actually can reflect on that and say, okay, yes, a lot of assholes around me here, a lot of incompetence, and maybe I can do something about it. And if I can't, then grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change.
That's so true. And Stephan, I've enjoyed this so much. I mean, when you said I held the mirror for you, and this is the beautiful thing when you're working with people and just talking, having conversations, it's a double-sided mirror, you know? So like I'm looking at myself. It's a beautiful way to grow. And this has been so much fun. I've enjoyed it. And thank you for the platform, because people are going to hear this and maybe there's one thing they heard from it, one person that heard it. But because you provided that platform for people to hear this, I just want to thank you for taking your time to do that, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's an absolute honor. It's a pleasure to have people like you on. And life is good. Cool. And you guys out there, come on. If you haven't found some inspiration today, then I don't want to know, because Joseph is a great man. And together, if we were just start talking and maybe start exploring a little bit inside, and maybe as a community, we can make this world a better place. I'm convinced we can. So
Absolutely.
Go out there, live your life with passion, and look after yourself. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.